I was listening carefully to the data that you shared with us based on the research that your organization had done about the way people and businesses were affected by the COVID crisis. And one of the issues is the increase of unemployment and the fact that people lost their jobs, mainly women, and implicitly many businesses had to close down. And we know now, looking back, that one of the reasons is the lockdowns. So my first question is, if your organization actually analyzed the way these lockdowns were done, if there was enough data behind those decisions, and if looking back, those lockdowns were, I would say, appropriate, legit or not. The second issue is in regards to the digital green certificate, which goes beyond the injections with mRNA vaccines. Because the digital green certificate was the tool used by governments, businesses, and other entities to actually restrict the fundamental right to work of many people, including members of the European Parliament and people who are working here. So the first question that I have to you in regards to the second topic is, what is the position of your organization on the digital green certificate itself? If you had any analysis, if you had any public position, and if you took a stand in regards to it. The second question in regards to this position is if your organization had any public position in regards to this or not, and nevertheless, if a similar crisis will happen in the future. Is your position in favor of such a digital certificate or not? Thank you.
Mrs. Matthias, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was listening also to your presentation with much interest. Although you have just made some references to that, I would like to come back to some of the issues related with the most vulnerable. And if you could please say to us make some additional comments on the measures needed to improve the working conditions, especially of those workers in mobility, as they were some of the most affected during the pandemic, and as in particular to their safety and the security in terms of cross-boarding, because, for instance, here in the European Union, and we are here in a region where a lot of workers live in one country and work in the other, so this is a very permanent and regular issue to deal with, and it was quite affected. And the second comment I would like also to ask you is on the measures, new measures and new approaches which have been developed concerning the right to disconnect. As during the pandemic there were a lot of changes in terms of the way we work, and of course here in this house we were already engaged in defining new rules for the right to disconnect, but I would like to know how do you see a common approach also in this area? Thank you.
Okay, that was the final question. And for your final answers, please.
Let me first come back to the questions of Mr. Terres, which were more going into the direction of ILO's position on certain initiatives, being it legit or not, or recommendable or not. The first one was on decisions made by countries to go into lockdown or not, based on the data available at that time, were they legit or not. I don't think that I can comment for the ILO on that question. I think it's maybe more for the WHO to answer, or for the countries themselves. Definitely what we would say as an ILO, where workers, employers and governments are are all three components of the ILO. What we say is very important in taking such drastic decisions which have an impact on the world of work, on the economy, to always consult with the partners involved, with workers and employers organizations. And we have seen that where it was done, it was very helpful to, for example, and I think probably a lot of countries have learned from the first wave compared to the second wave, etc., and have adjusted their strategy, as we all probably learned as we were going through this pandemic, but that it was important to engage with the sector at sectoral level to see what works best. Where do we need to get a lockdown, or where do we have the most impact to have a lockdown for the safety of the public health, for the safety of the economy and the workers in that sector, but to engage with workers and employers organization. I think if there is one recommendation that ILO gives, it's that one. And definitely on the digital green certificate, there is no ILO position. It's not the type of decision we would look at and express ourselves on. Voilà. Then, Ms. Matthias, you had questions on workers in mobility. I think that's typical for the transport sector, where there are cross-border issues, and it will have to be taken with us for next pandemics. I can give the example of the seafarers. Seafarers, where ILO has done a lot of work to the challenge of many seafarers who were out of nowhere, stuck on a boat without being taken care of. And that was an exaggerated, let's say, form. Transport sector also has many, in the road transport sector has many examples of where it went, let's say, wrong, or where it can be done better. But for seafarers, a lot had to be done to make sure that people were being taken care of and not stuck on their container ships for months and months and months in a row. Those were the most the questions that I have noted down. I may have missed some, so please remind me of them if I missed to answer those.
I don't see anybody,
No.
so that
Okay, good.
concludes